Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm a
I'm
ghost.
Adam Steele, and apparently Liam is a ghost because I didn't do the thing
Oh,
before the start of the stream.
hello. Hello.
Hello. How are you, apart from being slightly the wrong size?
um, I'm a bit headless.
I'm working on it. I'm
No, I'm
working on
good.
it. No tech issues, no tech issues.
No, I'm
There
good.
we go.
I've been up since 3 a.m.
What?
Yeah.
Wasn't to do with the dogs, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I did go to bed at 8 p.m., so it wasn't too bad.
Right, okay. I was in bed by 9:30. I'm such an old man.
I know.
That was actually because I've not been well. As everybody saw me last week, I was rather pale. I am much better this week, you'll be glad to know, but I'm still not quite myself. But I'm 95%, which is close enough to 100% that we're all good. Thank you, everybody, last week and the week before who sent get well soon messages and everything. Turns out it was just a really nasty tummy bug, so it's just taken a while to level out. But here I am. Here's Liam, here's Chris in the chat, Andre and Mage, and Mike Hoover and everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yes, it's been a busy couple of weeks considering I've been trying to take time off to try and rest. Time off for me means that I've been working like a kind of a normal 9 to 5 person might work. Last night I interviewed the lovely Britta Goetz from the German band High Res, and my mind has gone on the names of the other bands because I am a forgetful person, especially this week. But yeah, she was really, really impressive at screaming and knows exactly what she's doing. So there's an interview coming out in a couple of days there. I filmed another video with Warren Hewitt, which comes out tomorrow.
Ooh.
Oh, indeed. I actually need to film my full version of that tomorrow morning because I've been putting it off because it takes quite a lot of energy to be on camera, and I've just not had that energy. But back to normal, and I've got my script written out, and I've already done the short version that's going in Warren's version of this same thing. I would tell you what it was, but I'll let Warren do the announcement because he likes to do that. And the company that it's for might get upset. I don't know, so we'll tell you tomorrow. Don't worry about it. In the meantime, I am now able to tell you about a thing I've been trying to tell you all about for months. And it's finally here. It's something that I've been doing with Two Notes. Let's just open the Two Notes website. There it is. I'm going to pull this up on the screen quickly. Laney have introduced their Laney collection with Two Notes, which is all these lovely cabs. Lots and lots of them. Whoop. There we go. This is because last week Zoom just refused to work, so we're back to Zoom being fine, and everything else has gone, hey, hang on, buddy. So yeah, anyone listening to this on audio, I do apologise. It's just that Liam's head was slightly squished. But
My head's being cut off.
Yes, and it has been reattached. So, surgeon, hey. Yes, all these lovely cabinets were at my studio at one point earlier this year, so I've captured them all on behalf of Laney for Two Notes. And they sound pretty good, if I may say so myself. And I'm glad that they are finally out in the wild. A couple of the cabs in there that I was quite nervous about using were there's an original 70s cab, which I don't know if actually belonged to Tony Iommi, but it was the exact same cab he would have used in the 70s. That one was really beaten up. And the one at the back left, the back right here, that's not, oh, there it is. It wasn't showing the cursor. That one there, actually is Tony Iommi's cab. I don't know why they're not making a bigger deal out of this. It's actually the Laney TI, so Tony Iommi 412. And that's the one that he actually uses in the studio. So I had the privilege of using Tony's own cab, having my own hands on it and moving it around and capturing it in the studio, which is very cool. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of rock history has been through the doors of Hot Pole Studios this year. And yeah, it sounded really good. So they're now available. Any money from that doesn't go to me because that's Laney's thing. And that's for them now, but they got me to do this for them. So don't worry about the behind the scenes stuff. But if you like Laney, you want to support it, and you like the sound of him, there you go. So yes, that's the coolest thing that has happened, I think, this week that I can talk about. Yeah, it's been quite a long week for me. On Monday, I was back with John Brown again, who now has about a third of my entire belongings in his studio. Because he's been tracking their new album, the new Monuments album, with the main amp was a PV5150, and his went poof and wasn't working right. So I drove over on Monday and donated mine for the time being. And so, if you can see behind me, he has in return lent me the Victory Super Kraken VX100. So I'm going to try and make a video about that if I can get a spare couple of hours in the studio this week, because it's a really cool sounding amp. It's got lots and lots of fire breathing inside it. And yeah, Super Kraken. It's very cool. So thanks John, for that. So yeah, he's currently tracking with 2 of my basses and 3 of my amps. But anything to help a friend out to get the best tones for what is hopefully going to be a defining album. So yeah, because he's been crazy busy with Riff Hard as well, I was like, you know what? Some of your gear's really nice, some of it's not cutting it. Use this. There you go. So yeah, that's going to be released in the next month or two, that album. They're really finishing up the final parts now. So yeah, that's kept me busy, but I kind of turned up, gave him the amps and the bass, and then just sat in the corner with my coat on, huddling and shivering because I was still not in the best of health. I was well enough to travel, but yeah, I am much better now, as I was saying. How's your week been?
Busy. Nothing really of note. Just cracking on, working stupid hours. Yeah, nothing interesting I can think of really.
I don't know if we've said on the channel before, but you are now helping out with Glenn Fricker's stuff. I think that's public knowledge at this point. That you're
I've been helping sort some of that. So yeah.
There's a lot of stuff coming up for Black Friday, not just for Glenn, but for us, for everybody, because of course there is, because that's what happens. Plans are still in motion, but of course we will announce as soon as we can with Black Friday deals and all that kind of thing. There is something else coming out with 2 notes from me that I've mentioned on the channel before, but specifics will have to wait until the grand release. What date is Thanksgiving this year? Let's just look at what exact... November 25th. Okay. So, yes, our thing, all being well, should come out the week before Thanksgiving, so before Black Friday, which is useful. That's the 2 notes thing. But again, specifics, we've got to wait for marketing announcements, all that kind of thing, which annoys me, but it's what we got to do. So, yes, that is coming. Went to see Chris today. He's doing well, playing around with his computers. It was a lot of fun, as always. I should have had a thing to show you today, but all I have to show you is a cable. Because I'm going to be making a video at some point soon about balanced headphone amps and what they are, because they are weird, and it piqued my interest. And that's a cable for these headphones that is balanced. So it's got a 4-pin XLR on it, which is really weird. These are Sennheiser HD650s on my head for anyone listening on the podcast version. And I've had these for a very, very long time. And it turns out that you can actually run these in what's called balanced headphone mode with the right cable and the right balanced headphone amp. So I'm going to purposefully mispronounce this so we don't get copyright flagged. But the amp company are called Shit Audio. It's spelled SCHIIT, but it's meant to be pronounced exactly as you would imagine it. Apparently the guy named his company that to wind up his wife. Because then it's like, well, marketing, how does it sound? Sounds like shit. But yeah, they make really, really good headphone amps and preamps and DACs and all sorts of hi-fi equipment. but they make them at really reasonable prices. This balanced headphone amp was $200. Which, for what it is really quite impressive, because most balanced stuff, you add an extra zero onto that. Because it's esoteric, so people are like, oh, well, you've got to pay lots of money. But yeah, balanced headphones are weird, because it's not the same as balanced audio on regular audio cables.
Right.
They've got the same name, but they're different things. Balanced audio cables are ones like XLRs, or if you see a jack that's got the extra ring on it. What they're actually doing with the audio cables is they send the audio twice, but one of them is kind of flipped, so it's upside down. And the idea is that if it picks up any noise along the way, because if you're in a studio or anywhere out, like an outdoor broadcast or whatever, there's a lot of electrical noise goes on. There's not a lot you can do to avoid it, but what a balanced cable does is it picks up exactly the same noise on both cables. And at the end of the cable, it then flips that other one back upside down again, and then the noise is out of phase and the noise disappears. Genius. But that's not how these work in balanced mode. Headphones, when you balance them, is a bit weird. You ever wondered why there are only 3 connectors on a headphone cable and there's 2 headphones?
No, because one's a balance, isn't it?
Well, one's ground.
Yeah.
So you have to have ground, but then each one only has one cable that pushes and pulls the entire magnet in the headphones.
Right.
Which I never thought much about. Kind of works, does its thing. But with balanced headphones, you've got 4 cables, 2 go to each headphone, and not only are the grounds not connected, they're completely separate, but in a standard headphone, one of them is ground, so it doesn't do anything, and the other one kind of pulls the magnet around. In a balanced headphone, they both pull the magnet around, while one pushes, one pulls. So they kind of double the amount of work they can do on the speaker, which apparently means that they're more efficient, they can do better transient response. I'm not sure, I'm not convinced, I want to try it, but at $200, I thought, you know what, that's not an unreasonable cost to get into this and give it a go. Because where it used to be just to get into that whole world, it was like, $2,000 mark. That's the kind of thing where it's like, this is probably snake oil, and if it is good, it's still far too much money for what it is. But I figured, hey, I'm actually running these Sennheiser 650s off the headphone output on the Audient ID14 Mark II over there, and it works really well. I did for a long time in the studio, though, have a dedicated headphone amp. Do you remember that little silver block?
Yeah, you used to take it with you, yeah.
Yeah, everywhere, because it was incredible. And so I've been yearning recently, thinking, why don't I get that kind of thing back again? Just because, when the headphone amp costs as much as the entire interface, if it's designed right, it's like, well, that should elevate the experience somewhat. So I thought, you know what? Let's do a video on it. Let's deep dive. Let's babble about it. But the funny thing is, I ordered it from their headquarters in Texas, and it said it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. I thought, okay, fine, cool. One day later, I get an email saying, your unit is on the way. Oh, right, okay. So that was then I got an email from FedEx, and then I went, oh boy. Because FedEx, great and terrible. You flip a coin, I find, with FedEx. Where the email said, oh, expect your delivery on the 3rd, which is like from Texas to England. That was like 36 hours. That's incredible. Except then the tracking said, it's got to Stansted, which is one of the airports near London, yesterday. Still no sign. And now it's saying, we can't give you a delivery date. We don't know. So it may just disappear. Or it might turn up 2 weeks later, having gone through France. Who knows? But yeah, that's my experience with FedEx, is they're fantastic sometimes. And then sometimes it's like, guys, what are you doing? You had one job. So yeah, that's a thing that I'm going to be doing a video on very soon. Let's just look at my little board, see if there's anything I can talk to you about. The IK Multimedia X5 video is coming very soon. I released the Dynamount video. Those guys really liked that video, which is great. They've now given me access to the Matrix. Kind of like their API. They've given me official access to how to control their Dynamount via essentially command line, which is really useful. But now my head hurts because I've been diving into scripting in Reaper, and it's a lot more complicated than I thought it was. But actually, the bit with the Dynamount seems fairly easy. It's the rest of it around it that's really hard. All I want to do is like add a track, add a wave file, add a region, set another track recording, move the Dynamount, do some recording. And I'm reading all this stuff going, oh, why is it this hard? But it's not that hard. It's just ultra specific because, of course, it's scripting. It has to be, there's no room for error with it. Whereas the way that I use Reaper, I can be quite clumsy and get away with murder. Scripting, not so much. So I've got to get my super nerd head on and watch every tutorial video about scripting and just sit there and cry for a while until I make a breakthrough. So yeah, that's going to be my next week in amongst all the other video editing and such that I have to do. Oh, the other thing that I'll quickly, before we move on to the news, mention is that on riffhard.com, they've just announced their newest guest instructor is a guitarist called Dan Sugarman from Ice 9 Kills. And he's a really nice guy, and I have been editing that course for the last 2 months, which is the thing that I couldn't talk about for Riff Hard because, NDA under wraps of who the next instructor is going to be. But yeah, he's an absolute beast, and that's been driving me insane. But that is now out. Ooh. So yeah, there's John's face. But yeah, Dan Sugarman doing a playthrough of a song that's all about Chucky. And yeah, that was also really good. So yeah, Marty says play E3 on piano, make Dynamount go left. I could actually do that. That wouldn't be that hard either. Like I said, it's the rest of it. Andre says, why not use DMX used in lighting? Because the Dynamount doesn't use DMX, Andre. I would that could help, but I have to work within the bounds of their system. Thing about APIs is when you have access to an API, that's all you get, is you get access. You don't get the tools to then go in and change it. I don't know if that would make it easier. That might actually make it harder. But yeah, with coding, I'm sure you are well aware with APIs, aren't you? That it's like sometimes it can be quite a black box, where it's like, I want to control this software. Okay, here's the commands to control it. Good luck.
It depends. APIs need really good documentation to work well, and for me, best documentation comes with examples, actual examples of the code of the input and the output for whatever languages you're likely to use. It really annoys me when they don't do that. Because you need to be able to see what you're expected to come out with. I mean, sometimes it's as easy as just having a demo, like 2 or 3 decent demos alongside an API can solve a lot of those problems as well.
Right.
But if you're just given basic API documentation and you're not a developer, then it can be a bit daunting because they'll just give you the outputs as expecting people to understand them. Because it can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah, that's what I'm experiencing right now with Reaper's API. With the Dynamount API, though, they've given me a full documentation, and it is, like you said, it's really good. It's really well laid out with all the examples. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that side of things. But the thing with the Reaper API is it's so open-ended. There's something like 300 or 400 different commands you can do. And all of them have different input and output techniques. And yeah, there's massive documentation on it, but I'm just looking at it as someone who doesn't really script in Lua, because it's all based in Lua.
Mm.
And I'm looking at it going, oh, okay, great, fine. But I know there are loads of examples out there, and because a lot of the scripting stuff is relatively open source. Like anybody who's made any scripts for Reaper, you can just open them and read them. So I'm probably going to be doing a lot of that and taking cues from a lot of people. Because I tried just typing something out a couple of days ago, and after half an hour, I was like, nope, nope. But yes, that is something that will be a video in the future, but for now I'm going to leave that there because it's making me want to cry. So let's talk about the news.
The news.
Important news of the week. Fender is acquiring Presonus.
Ooh.
Yes, so this could be really interesting because Presonus, they make the DAW Studio One. They also make interfaces. They also make preamps. They make a lot of music tech gear. They're a very kind of broad company in what they make. And it's really interesting to me that Fender have just jumped on it and said, right, everything you do, we want that. Although having said that, in a lot of acquisitions, that's not the entire story, is it? It might be, we want half of the things that you make, you're going to stop making the other half. Maybe. But that may not be, may not be the case in this case. But we'll see. I've heard loads and loads of horror stories of companies being taken over and then half the products are immediately taken off the production line. Sometimes that's a blessing in disguise. That actually happened to Apple after Steve Jobs left and then came back. When he came back, he looked at half the product line and went, nope. And then went, right, we make the iPod, we make the Power Mac and the MacBook, and that was about it. And look what happened to them. So yeah, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's what's needed. But hey, I'm thinking this is really interesting because now there's a lot of broad possibility to see things like Fender branded interfaces, which for a lot of the less techy people, I think that will immediately, if they're built well enough, inspire trust. That it's like, if you want a virtual guitar interface, you get a Fender interface with something that sounds like a Fender amp going straight into something like Presonus' Studio One, which is now going to be the Fender Presonus Studio One. They can handle this really badly, or they can handle this amazingly well. With it being such a big company, I don't know how it's going to go, but I don't think this is going to be the same as what Gibson were doing with a lot of the companies that they acquired, where they were just kind of gobbling up everything they can just to make the company a larger company. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that's the only reason Gibson did what they did pre the new CEO, but I think that's what it ended up as, that it was just acquisition after acquisition, to inflate the value of the company, and look how that ended up. I think that's a good example, specifically because Gibson had Cakewalk, the people who made Sonar, and so that entire project essentially got canned, and it's like, well, why did you buy this company? Just to kind of shut them down. I think Fender are going to have learned from that, and they're going to much more strategically use the resources of a company like Presonus. Fender have always been, out of the two, Fender and Gibson, I think the more shrewd and kind of clever with things like purchases and acquisitions and marketing moves. And Gibson have got the massive brand behind them. It was almost impossible for them to fail. They had to put out some absolute dogs of instruments to take a beating in the public eye. They really had to do badly just to have their public image knocked. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing.
They've not sued everyone under the sun either.
Not that we know of, but no, I think you're right. Yeah, Presonus have made some really good stuff in the past. They've also made some pretty terrible stuff, but that's in my opinion. But that's generally at the lower, cheaper end, where Presonus were doing what they had to do to meet price points. But again, personal opinion, some of the stuff like the tube preamps that they made that were super cheap, I would look at them and go, this is a terrible product no matter how you look at it. You would have been better off just not making this. But no company's perfect. No company's got a spotless record. And in Presonus's defense, a lot of the stuff that they have made in the mid-tier and upper tier, like their quantum interfaces, that kind of thing, have actually been really quite impressive, especially integrated with their own DAW, Studio One, which I don't actually know anybody who uses Studio One, but the vocal community that I've seen really do seem to stand behind it. I've heard a lot of good things about it, so yes, that will more than likely very soon end up with like Fender amp models and things like that in Studio One, because why wouldn't they? But where else it takes them, we'll know very soon. Oh yes, there you go. Let's keep an eye on that in the future and see how we go. So
see what's what.
Yes, indeed. Moving on, Rode have now come up with the tiniest interface I've ever seen. This is the Rode AI Micro.
Okay.
So this is not a recorder. This is a PC or Mac audio interface. And it's that big. It's tiny. It's absolutely teeny tiny. And apparently it's a very specific thing. So I don't know how good it's going to be, but the idea behind it, and they've got photos and that kind of thing, is it can work with USB-A, C, and Lightning as well, so it can be used as an audio interface for a phone. It's got 2 inputs for 2 of their lav mics, the Rode, the wireless Go mics, the Lav Mic Plus, all that kind of stuff. The Smart Lav Plus, sorry. But apparently something that's cool about them is if you've got one of the an off-brand, different brand wireless mic that's got a 3 TRS connection, you plug that in, that will work fine. If you've got one of the Smart Lavs with the 4-pin like you would use with the old iPhone jacks, that also works fine. So they've made sure they've designed it so it's auto-sensing. And of course it's got headphone output as well, so you can hear on a Skype call or something like that. I mean, that's really just a big flex if you're Skype calling and using a lav mic on your phone. But they are €79. So if what you need is something that's small, on the go, clips on, and you can record into like a dictation app, or you can use this with like a PC or Mac. This might be a really small portable way of getting good sound without carrying a separate recorder or a separate dedicated camera or something like that. Having options like this is always a good thing, I think. Apparently a wireless system like the Rode Wireless Go can be integrated with it. I'm not sure how, but I'm guessing that that's using the TRS output on the Wireless Go into the TRS input on these, because that would you just stack them on top of each other and just click. Which, because I've got a Rode Wireless Go, I can see that being quite a useful little setup, because the Wireless Go's got a battery inside that's got quite a long battery life. And this would be powered by the iPhone or MacBook or whatever it is. So having a short range wireless system could be really clever for things like presentations, actually. So
possibly,
yeah, because then you can stand up, do a full stand-up presentation, move around, and not have to have a big fat interface or a big boom stand or anything. You could be quite light and portable. Yeah, Van Dien says might be handy for doing a live interview at a trade fair. Maybe, but we've done that at trade fairs, NAMM being the obvious one. And trust me, you need a microphone that is right in people's grills for that, right up to their face, because Anything that far away that would be on a lapel, you're getting nothing compared to the background noise. But it's better than nothing. In that situation, it might be okay, but if you want actual audio you can hear, you really do have to kind of shove the mic in people's faces. First time you do it, it feels a little aggressive, and then you realise that everybody's doing it because the background noise is just offensive. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's a thing. So, yeah, if you want that, go get that. It does say in this write-up from Gearnews.com that the cables are 3 meters long for the USB. They are not. They are that long, which is 30 centimeters, so 0.3 meters. I think there's been a spelling mistake somewhere. But, yeah, they're not 3 meter cables because that would be unwieldy. But, yeah, the fact that you can use it in different things like that, I can see a use case for it. Now, moving on, Earthquaker Devices, who make some very cool stuff, including the plumes, which I have one down there. Marty says, what kind of power supply can it use? It doesn't need a power supply. It runs off the USB off PC, Mac, iPhone, USB-C off Android. It powers off that. So, yeah, it doesn't have a power supply separately. So, yes, Wata from the band Boris, who are one of my favourite Doom bands, has now made a recreation of their Elk BM Sustainer called the Hizumitas Fuzz Sustainer, which I'm guessing is a fuzz that just goes on forever. And yes, she is in Boris. They play at roughly 4 BPM, maybe 5 if they're doing a really angry song. But yeah, I really want to go and see Boris because it's the kind of band where they are so shockingly loud. It's a religious experience by all accounts. They're the kind of band where they have a wall of amps on stage that is not dummy cabs. It's not for show. They are all on, and they are on 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they play very slowly and very doomy and go... And yeah, just listening to a CD of it, if you've got it on loud enough, suddenly like the house starts to rattle and you get an idea. Yeah. Marty says, but you can splice a power bank in there. But why? Why would you put a power bank in there, Marty? Okay. But yes, apparently there is the latest Boris record is available with that, and it's $149, which actually isn't too bad for a boutique pedal. Although it's a limited edition run via Reverb, which means that scalpers are going to be selling it for $350 or $400 by the end of the week. But yeah, hopefully anyone who actually wants one can go get one, and good luck to you. Because yeah, they sound pretty beastie. But then if I want a kind of a big doomy sound, I've got most of the Jupiter Effects pedals back here, so I could just plug those in. Funnily enough, Wata from Boris actually has most of the fuzz Jupiter Effects pedals too. Yeah, so the guys from Jupiter Effects put out a picture of Boris with the Jupiter Effects stuff, and they were rather happy. Talking of Jupiter Effects, there is another little announcement that happened this week that has just come to mind, and I'm just quickly pulling it up now. I don't want to deafen myself with it, but here, come on, load up. Wallow, which is Chris Jupiter from Jupiter Effects' band. If you guys saw the mixes that I did on our channel, they are now live. They've been released. They have been mastered. They are now out as singles. The 2 songs, Credits and Polite Smile by Wallow, are now out there in the wild. And they sound pretty good. They're beastie. I mean, I would say that, but they've now been mastered by one of the big mastering engineers who does all the doomy stuff and bands like Nothing. And yeah, it's really nice to have someone else master the tracks I've been mixing on for a change. And yeah, it sounds like he didn't do much to it. Sounds great. So yeah, that is also out there. And I'm going to drop a link for that in the chat. There we go. So, moving on. A lot of hip-hop guys will have heard of the SP1200 drum sampler by Emu. Emu, not Rod Hull's right hand with a puppet. If anybody's ever seen Rod Hull and Emu, maybe that's just a very British thing. So, yes, now you can get a full, authentic recreation of this, which is, awesome. So the original designer of the SP1200, Dave Rossum, has made a pretty much bit-for-bit perfect copy of the SP1200. So that is now out there. And so, yeah, it was like, early 90s hip-hop was either an Akai MPC or one of these. And, yeah, they've got kind of a gritty, I think it's a 12-bit sampler in them. So it's very early digital. It's got a definite character all of its own.
Right.
And, yeah, it's been updated a little bit. Apparently the recording time for the samples has gone from 10 to 20 seconds. And the floppy drive has been replaced with an SD card slot, which is very useful in this day and age because floppy disks are a huge pain.
And what, 2.2 meg was it?
1.4. That's all you get. Yeah, that is it.
Not even an MP3.
Not even. Yeah. Yeah, to load all the samples on this, I mean, for a 10-second, if it was wave quality at 12-bit, you might be lucky to get samples for each drum on a floppy disk, if you're lucky. But, yeah, that is really cool. So, classic drum machine guys, if that's what you like, then you can get one now. And, yeah, there's unfiltered outputs, filtered outputs on there for every separate drum as well. So it outputs not just a stereo output, but everything separately. So you can send them to different processors like distortions, EQs, whatever you want to do with it. You pretty much get a full drum kit out there. So yeah, they are taking pre-orders for production run number 3 already. They cost $4,000, and
wow.
that sounds like a lot, but apparently they're having to limit them to 2 per customer. What? Which tells me that they're popular. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a market for stuff like this. Like I said, it's the real deal analog crunchy thing for like hip hop guys. And I know a lot of them now like mix and write tracks in the box, but when you get up to a certain level, I think there is that demand. It's like guitarists that have like vintage guitars or that kind of thing where there's just a certain something about it that can't really be replicated with something that's a software version. And it's maybe it's also the hands-on thing that just having physically able to program the stuff in there. And then because it's got all the separate outputs, like send you kick to a compressor, etc., etc. I can see guys like, and I'm not saying this ironically, seriously, guys like Kanye West he'll probably have bought 2 of these straight away. Because guys like that who've got the money to spend and know exactly how to use this kind of gear probably don't want to rely on their old ones. Or they can't find old ones anymore because they're breaking. And yeah, imagine going to one of these guys and saying, hey, how would you like a perfect recreation of this old stuff but with an SD card slot so it's not going to so you don't need a pack of floppy disks
anymore.
Get
like floppy disks that are like, like the old cassettes you used to put in your car and then connect it to your phone? Can you get a floppy disk that you can connect to an SD card?
You know what? You can. Not exactly like SD card, but I have actually seen on like retro tech channels there are old like PCI Express cards, PCI cards that go into like a floppy disk thing. It exists. So yeah, anything you can dream of, someone's probably done it at some point. It didn't become popular because everybody looked at it and went, "Why?" So yeah.
Floppy disk converter.
So there you go. But yeah, moving on from that to something that also replicates stuff that's from the 80s and 90s, and that is the JHS pack rat. It's a rat. Yeah, it's a very cute rat as well. But yes, the pack rat has 9 different rat pedals in one, which is really clever if you like that big, fuzzy kind of distortion that's like a lot of Nirvana-ish stuff, and the whole like early Weezer tone was probably rat pedals. Because it's just got that crunchy thing that even a high gain amp doesn't do what these do. Another good example is probably Song 2 by Blur, that big kind of thing. That's a rat. But yeah, there's been many, many different ones over the years. I've got a rat in the studio somewhere. Don't worry, it's house trained. Looks a bit more like that. It's actually a Chinese thing called the Rat Attack that I've got, but it's a similar design, but it's got a switch that actually switches between 3 different types of rat rather than 9. And it's probably not that well built, whereas the JHS stuff, you can probably use this in hand-to-hand combat, and it will survive longer than you will. But yeah, it goes all the way from the very original design of the first rat right the way through to the turbo rat, the brat, the you dirty rat, and then some weirder ones, including a JHS mod at the end. JHS, of course, have made the Muffaletta, which was 9 types of muff, and the Bonsai, which was 9 types of tube screamer before. So this is something that people have been expecting to see from them. But yeah, they've been working on this, from what he was saying, for 8 years. Just on and off, just getting it just right. And they are not cheap. They are $250, $300, 290 euros from Thomann. But they are built like a JHS pedal. They are tough, like I said. Although, to be fair, the old muffs were also, not muffs, the old rats were also quite tough, but they are getting really quite rare now. Especially ones that are in good condition. Because at one point, every punk guitarist probably had a rat, but a lot of them have been really badly treated and broken and been thrown in the trash.
Yeah, you've got to look after your rats. Like, that's just not animal abuse, otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah, although don't leave too many of them in the same box, or they will reproduce. But yeah, on the JHS channel, there was a big video about it last week where they went through the whole rough overview of what the pedal does. And tomorrow, if you're watching this live, they're doing a live video on the JHS channel where they're doing a super nerdy deep dive on what actually makes the circuit designs different, which is something I'm going to try and tune in for because I love really, really nerdy stuff like that. I mean, when we're talking about different clipping diodes and different LEDs and that kind of thing, that's not everybody's taste. Some people don't care, but I care. Because I'm a nerd. And not everybody's a nerd, and that's okay. But if you just want a specific rat sound, you can now dial the knobs in and then click that thing and go click, nope, that one. And then stick with that. And then if you actually like the original, you can still probably go out and find the original, but they may be a grossly inflated price on Reverb, especially now after this has come out. Good luck if you don't already own one. Talking of pedals that can survive a nuclear winter, Boss have now announced their new Wazza pedal, the FZ1W, 60 style silicon fuzz pedal, hot on the heels of their ridiculously overpriced on the scalping market Solar Sound Fuzzbender that they made. They made a very limited quantity of. I think that they're probably not going to make a limited number of these, like they haven't done with the other Wazza stuff. Apparently, it's not out yet. This is it turned up online and then was swiftly withdrawn. So it seems like somebody accidentally updated their website in private and someone found it or something. You know how it goes. Especially with nerds that are interested in this kind of thing who will just probe your site looking for stuff. But yes, it looks a lot like the Solar Sound tone bender, but with a more specific Boss sound. Boss have done fuzz pedals before, and they're actually quite popular. I think it's the FZ2 was FZ2 was the really popular one, the Hyper Fuzz. And I down here have, I'm slightly ashamed of this, but I have it anyway, the Behringer Super Fuzz. Because this is the exact circuit from the Boss FZ2 Fuzz, which you just can't find one. And when you can find one, they go for exorbitant prices, and Behringer were doing the exact same circuit for an affordable price. So I thought, you know what, for what I'm going to use it for, I'll just grab that, because as much as I'm not a big fan of giving Behringer lots of money, because of some of their business practices we've talked about on the channel before, it was really quite cheap, and it's probably going to get used once every year or two if I'm lucky. But when I need it, I just need it to be there. I don't need a Wazacraft pedal because I'm not a touring guitarist. I don't need it to be like nuclear bomb proof and all that kind of thing, which is what comes with the build quality of the Boss stuff. But yeah, this is probably going to go on sale very soon. Looks like there was some detailed specs on the page that no longer exists. So yeah, apparently there's a demo video now. So this was a leak, and now they've gone, okay, fine. So there's a video out now on the Boss channel. So you can go and listen to that, and apparently it's more of a 60s fuzz design. But yeah, if I'm going to use a fuzz, I'm probably going to use the Jupiter stuff most of the time because it sounds like doom. But yeah, there you go. Moving on to the other big guitar company, because we already talked about Fender today. It's Gibson's turn. If you remember, we talked about the Adam Jones...
Carry on.
We talked about the Adam Jones Tool Gibson guitar model a little while back and how they sold out in about 3.5 nanoseconds. So they've now decided to make a version 2 and a second run. I don't know what's different about it on the V2. They look very pretty. But yeah, apparently it's not an exact clone in terms of the wear marks, so they've not gone into quite so extensive detail on the relicking this time, although it has still been relicked with the Murphy Labs thing. And I'm stretching my mind back, but I think the version 1 of this was about $13,000 to $14,000, and now these are an absolute bargain at $9,999. Oof. But because they've not had to take weeks being ultra specific with the aging absolutely matching the original, I suppose that's passing the savings on to you. Savings, yeah, great. I mean, if it sounds anything like Adam Jones's actual Les Paul, then a lot of people are going to go for that. I am definitely going seeing Tool next year, and I'm super excited. Because it's the first time I'll have got to see them in person because I'm an idiot and didn't see them when I should have. But that's just me. So there you go. That's now a thing that's probably already sold out.
Here's the news. News is old.
Yeah.
2 seconds later.
Oh, with stuff like this, unfortunately, it's true. Oh, in related news, talking about prog and things selling out, Porcupine Tree, which is Stephen Wilson's old band before he went solo, have reformed and are playing shows in Europe. The tickets for the only show in England, which is at the Wembley Arena, go on sale tomorrow, and I will be there clicking, trying to get some tickets. Because, yes, please. I've been waiting for that for 15 years, maybe. So, yes, that's another piece of news that isn't in the news, but is news and isn't quite sold out yet. So it's technically news. So, yeah, moving on from that, because that's almost personal news, but it's not. It's band news. Apogee have now started making plugins again. Bob Clearmountain. Ooh. Bob Clearmountain was in the 80s the guy you went to mix your song if you wanted a hit. In fact, before Bob Clearmountain, it wasn't really the done thing to have a separate person mix your songs. That's how influential Bob Clearmountain was. Before him, generally whoever you recorded the song with in the studio would then just balance the levels and send it out to mastering. They did mix it, but not as a separate mixing engineer. They were the guy that you'd hired to record the thing and do the thing. So, yeah, Bob Clearmountain was one of the first, probably not the first, but he was the big one, where there were a lot of kind of hushed tones in the 80s where it's like, if you want a number one, take your track to Bob Clearmountain and he will do the thing and you will be very, very rich with big hits and money. And so if there's anybody who knows sound at this point, it is probably Bob Clearmountain. And Apogee, who makes some incredible hardware, interfaces, converters, the real high-end stuff, have now made plugins based on Bob Clearmountain's favourite phasers and flangers and all his weird, kind of rare gear that just isn't usually seen. The kind of things that would make a Bob Clearmountain mix stand out, where stuff that people hadn't heard in the 80s, like these ultra-wide sounds and really kind of interesting background sounds, that kind of thing. He might not have gone crazy on like the lead vocal or whatever. He wouldn't have just gone and destroyed a mix, but these were really interesting cutting edge ways at the time to make mixes sound different and go, oh, that's different, that's new. And so they've not actually named the exact units that they've modeled, probably because licensing. But I'm going to go ahead and guess that some of it's probably kind of Eventide-ish. But then Eventide have recently been making a big push with software to release their own versions of things. So it may not be Eventide, it may be completely different. I know that I can see the flanger here has got Bucket Brigade delay selections on there, which is to do with like classic delays and choruses using analog components that weren't actually using tape machines or anything. There's a tape flange button, which will probably change the sound there. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful sounds in there. The pricing is interesting. It's $149, which is not cheap, but there's also a rent-to-own method where you can pay $10 a month, and after 15 months, it is yours, so it's the same money. Well, actually, you pay $1 more, but $1 in terms of like almost 0% APR over 15 months, that's not that bad. Something like 0.2% APR, and I'm not doing the math on that. If someone wants to work out one 150th, something like 0.6 or 0.7% APR, that's not bad. I don't know, but yeah, they are out now. Go get it. From the sublime to the slightly weird, a company called Mixland has made a compressor called the Rubber Band, and I've not had a chance to try this yet, but White Sea Studios have done a video of their typical snake oil thing, which annoys me a little bit, but they're interesting videos. And it's a VCA style compressor, but it's got this tension control and snap. But they're separate from attack and release, so I don't actually know what they do, because usually that's the kind of thing where you would manipulate attack and release to provide snap or tension, as I would describe it. But Yeah, one of the guys from Kive Audio and Grammy Award-winning mix engineer Jesse Ray Ernster have come together to make this plugin. I don't know if this is a plugin that needs to exist. Maybe it's a great plugin, but I've already got plenty of compressors and that kind of thing. Having said that, I'm the nerd who innately knows exactly which compressor to go to out of a selection of 20, and I know what the controls all do because I spend far too much time faffing around with it all. And I am the first to admit that I have spent far more time than is healthy doing that kind of thing. And I know that's not for everybody. So if this makes things work for you a lot quicker without you having to, research for 5 years or whatever it is, then hey, fair play to you. And the price on this one's quite reasonable. It's $20, regular price $30. So if this does a lot of what you want out of a plugin, then hey, this could be something. VCA compression is quite kind of punchy, snappy compression. A lot of guys in the 80s would use them on things like snares. If you want more of a kind of crack on a snare and it's not got it already, then a VCA compressor is a really good way to do that. They are not particularly distorted, and they're also not particularly slow. So they can kind of grab onto things and bring a lot out without being necessarily too affecting of the actual sound itself. So there you go.
Fair enough.
Mage says, did he test it with Darude Sandstorm? Lol. Now here's one. Dear Reality's Dear VR Mix. Seeing as though this has already been announced, I will actually tell you. Tomorrow the video is this that I'm going to be putting out with Warren. I wasn't going to say, but since this has already been announced, then I had assumed at first that the release was all happening on one day, but no, this news article is out there now, so that's the thing. Dear VR makes some Dear Reality make these really weird binaural plugins so that you can use 5.1 or Dolby Atmos or all that kind of stuff on regular stereo headphones. It makes my head hurt thinking about how it works, but it does. And it's a bit weird. But Dear VR Mix is a stereo version of that still works on your headphones. And it's got a headphone compensation built in so that it can do the kind of the SonarWorks-ish thing of correcting for the headphone profile on top of the room emulation. And it's pretty good. And because it's powered by Sennheiser, of course, all the different Sennheiser headphones are in there, like the 650s. And so, that's it's pretty good, but I'm going to do a proper demo of it tomorrow of what it sounds like. Because
watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. It's good. And that's all I'll say until tomorrow when you can hear my thoughts in deeper detail. Moving on. We've been talking over and over the last few weeks about the Rhodes piano. Pricing is finally here, and boy, howdy, you gotta be rich. But if you are rich and you want a Rhodes, now you know how rich you have to be. You can customize the color of them. You can customize if you've got the effects. You can customize the bottom shell to be walnut and the panels to be silver or black. There's loads of different colors of it. Very pretty. That's the kind of style I would want with a clear top and a walnut finish. Oh, yes. Unfortunately, let's look at the prices. So, where did I see them? The basic model is £6,795, or including VAT, £8,154. Whoo, boy. And so if we include the VAT, this is the British tax system. The most expensive ones are £10,938.
Oof.
Oof, indeed. for one keyboard electric piano. I mean, they were never cheap, but yowza. The thing that's really interesting, they're saying in the article, is you can still find a Mark I Rhodes for around £4,000. So you're actually paying more than twice as much for the recreation. So we'll see how that goes. But then again, we're in a massive resurgence of, people who are of a certain age who've earned their money already, who want something that isn't just like a slightly broken, restored thing from the 60s. They actually want something that has the all singing, all dancing, all the features, while still not being a digital recreation of the real thing. And I would imagine there's a significant markup in that price. I mean, there'd have to be for the company to keep going. I'm not imagining they're going to sell a stupid number of these. Apparently, the aim is to make 50 pianos a month, up to 500 a year. That would be, 500 a year at £10,000. That's how much? That's £5 million turnover a year. That's not bad. I mean, of course, that's at the high end. The lower end ones are still £8,000 a year. That's I'll wait 20 years and get one on the second-hand market. But then I say that I'm not a crazy keyboard guy. I've got a couple of keyboards. I'm a crazy bass and guitar guy. Over the years, I've spent a lot of money, a large percentage of my income over the years being more than a hobbyist on high-end equipment. So I can completely appreciate that there will be people out there that this is the thing they've been waiting for. But now we know how much it costs. That's probably the end of the news articles about the Rhodes, because nope. But yeah, there we go. And the last one, and this one just popped in because one of our guys on the Discord, join the Discord, everybody. I'm sure someone will join with. Come on, words. Words is hard. Drop a link. Thank you. Words is hard. Someone will drop a link because Al in the Discord, who's one of our regulars, was telling me that he had bought this plugin and said it was really good. This is by Mastering the Mix, which is a confusing company name, and it's called Rezo. It identifies and eliminates resonances in your mixes, which sounds a bit like Soothe to me, but perhaps a lot less aggressive. Because what Soothe does as a plugin is, unless you're really restrictive with it, it kind of dips and works with anything nasty in the entire frequency spectrum. Whereas it seems like this doesn't do that. It just looks for specific, what I like to call whistles. So things like with cymbals or heavy guitars, where it might sound really good, but if you listen closely, there's kind of a thing in there. This, it looks for those exact bits and then just tames them specifically. Which, I mean, that's something that I can do manually, but it's time consuming. And if this is adaptive, this may well remove those only at certain times. Frequency analyzer, sweep tool. There's an automatic calculate targets feature, which is nice. Mastering grade filters, marketing grade filters. Apparently the usual price is $69. Nice. But the introductory price is $58. So, yes, that is now a thing you can get. Now, I would love to find Behringer news for Behringer Corner, but unfortunately they've been keeping their nose clean. It seems they've not done anything this week.
Boo.
Boo indeed. So that was... Boo earns. That was Zinneros.
Shush Rogie.
Yes, Shush Rogue. Yes, Marty was saying yes. Porcupine Tree are back. They've not made the biggest song and dance about it, but it's very exciting for anyone who's a Steven Wilson fan. And most people go, "Who? Who's that?" It's like, that guy whose last two albums both went to #1. Nope, still not heard of him. Nope. Never mind. But his band Porcupine Tree are one of my favourite bands ever. They used to win like Sony Mix Awards and things like that. It was all actually mixed by the main guy, Stephen Wilson. He's a bit of a hero of mine in the mix world as well as the musical world. He has been tasked over the years with going back and remixing most of the classic prog rock albums that you've ever heard of in 5.1 and in stereo from the original tapes. And yeah, winning lots and lots of awards, doing really well. And now he started working in Dolby Atmos as well, which is really exciting. Positional audio seems to be the new gimmick. I'm sure you've seen like Apple announcing their new headphones with positional audio and the new all that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on with positional audio right now. I don't know whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, but Dolby got in there first and they've got the Atmos thing. And that's such a double-edged sword because now there are a lot of guys who, as soon as you say Dolby something, that immediately adds a lot of gravitas, I think. So they go, oh, it's a thing, that's a real thing, and it's not just some gimmick. But the downside is that because Dolby got there first, if you want to be on their system, you pay a licensing fee. And of course, any closed system with licensing fees can make things difficult. Because then you're limiting the number of people who can produce for that. Because, a lot of people don't have the kinds of budgets to just go and pay a license. I mean, a lot of how many like Indian punk bands would go to a studio, make a CD, stamp them themselves, and there's no licensing fees anywhere. They just go and sell them on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I have actually heard an Atmos mix that I thought was really cool, and it was a hip hop track, and they panned things in really cool places, and when done right, I think it can be really cool. I mean, have we talked on the podcast about positional audio before? I think we have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and how kind of it all stems from like game design is kind of the pioneer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you're playing a game like PUBG, how do you know exactly where a gunshot came from when you're only wearing headphones? But you do. You actually know where it came from because it's positional audio, because the game said, right, this mono sound came from there, and the ricochet of the bullet sound came from the opposite place. And your brain goes, he's over there. And that's the difference with positional audio based compared to what we call discrete audio. Because if
I remember last time we spoke about it, I mentioned about CS:GO. I think some of the best examples of it, because that game is probably 80% audio. It genuinely is, like especially at the pro level, it's all audio. Like it's absolutely impossible to play with like music on.
Yes, well that's it. And the technical engine behind it, that like the example of sound comes from here, ricochet comes from here. If you move your player's head by 10 degrees, the sound is suddenly in a different place. But your brain interprets that because you visually moved your player's head. And yeah, the whole thing about positional audio absolutely fascinates me.
Yeah, they've updated their audio engine 2 or 3 times.
Right.
And it's weird, as a result, some pros will use the legacy versions because even though it's not as good, they're used to it, because then that becomes that aspect of it then as well. Just because it's more accurate doesn't mean it's actually right for you when you're talking about, say, audio in a game.
Yeah.
Which is different to audio in music.
Well, yeah, and positional audio in music, I'm sure that people will take creative licensing with it. Well, creative license of doing things wrong for effect. Because of course people will. That's what people have done forever, is you give them a set of rules and somebody's going to go, I'm going to do this wrong, and you're going to love it. But yeah, the whole thing with that is that you can play it on stereo headphones, or you can have a 5.1 surround system, or you can have an Atmos system, a full height surround system, but you don't actually send the device like a stereo file or a surround sound file. You send it a file where all the sounds are just in places. And then it's up to the hardware then to go, okay, well, this person's wearing headphones, or, okay, this person's got a 5.1 system, or whatever, and then put the things in the right places. And it's absolutely fascinating. The other way to do it is by using ambisonics, which is what I think the future of that's going to be, because with 4 channels of audio, I can send somebody a file that with the right decoder, with any headphones or any speakers, any system, will put that set of sounds exactly where they're supposed to be, up, down, left, right, forward, back, the whole thing. And it's fascinating, and I should probably do a video on this. It's starting to dawn on me, because this is what I studied at university as my major thesis. And it's come full circle now. And it's going to be fascinating how this progresses in the next few years, because I don't think it's going to go away where 3D TVs came and kind of went. The big push, the next push. We've got 4K, nobody really cares about 8K. We had 3D, nobody cared about 3D. Where's the next thing that's going to stick? I think it's going to take some major artists mixing their tracks with positional audio, but I think, that's going to be the next thing. We get a Beyonce album that's mixed in Atmos. We get albums like that are just experiences, but also fold down and work perfectly well on stereo headphones. That's where it's going to be interesting, because some of the worst albums I've heard are ones that were originally mixed in stereo and then later they made them like surround sound versions. But if you start off trying to make it a surround sound version that with the intention of it working well in stereo, you're already onto a winner.
Oh, I've just thought about some news that my dad told me about audio-wise. Have you heard? Do you hear that? I'm not sure how new it is. He heard it on an interview, so it may be old news, but I thought it was interesting to talk about anyway. Did you hear that Coldplay stopped touring because they saw that he felt that his carbon footprint was too big?
No.
Yeah, so they decided they were going to stop touring because flying all around the world was too big of a carbon footprint. He's realized that he really misses touring, so they looked at how could they offset it in some way, and they've been working with I'm sure he said it was a BMW manufacturer, and they have created a dance floor that generates electricity by people jumping up and down on it. So they're going to power their gigs by the crowd's energy.
Wow.
How cool is that?
Well,
so yeah,
as their crowd,
like, solar freaking roadways.
Yeah, solar freaking Coldplay. That's awesome.
Yeah, so basically, kinetic energy of people jumping up and down. So basically, he'll be saying, "Come on, jump," because otherwise the gig's going off because we won't have enough electricity.
Yeah, the lights start going down. Yeah, everybody jump. Yeah. As their crowd gets older, as they get older as well, they should also have like biogas processors in the ceiling because yeah, middle-aged crowd sitting there going, turn it into free energy.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting news. Thank you for sharing that with the class. That's really cool.
Yeah, courtesy of Phil.
Yes, thank you, Phil. I suppose there's only so many bands that, like we're talking about with pioneering, that could do a thing like that and invest in doing it. But then if they prove that and make that work, then a lot of touring companies will look at that and go, well, if they've made it work and it's cost effective, yeah, let's do that. Yes, so much of what we see in terms of all this really clever stuff, I think, is some leader or two going out and just doing it, and everybody else looking at the metrics and going, yeah, we should be doing that. Van Dien says, yeah, it's never going to catch on at a goth gig. Yeah, but at a punk show, they'll be blowing light bulbs.
Yeah. Finally get something to those really annoying scene kids that would windmill purposely trying to elbow people. Like, you just attach some cables to them. They can literally hamster wheel the show going now.
Yeah, apparently Fish, who is originally from Marillion, for anyone who doesn't know who I'm talking about, is talking about the next 2 re-releases being done in Dolby Atmos rather than 5.1. Which, again, makes a lot of sense to me if you can have a Dolby Atmos decoder, because then if you've only got a 5.1 surround system, it will then just convert that on the fly, and that's fine. But if you've got one of those magical systems with the height speakers and everything, and they fascinate me, and I do want to do that at some point, then you can listen to the album in all its 3D glory. Oh, I should set the studio up with Dolby Atmos. Cali Audio on Warren Produce Like a Pro, his channel, he went to a studio recently where they had a Dolby Atmos setup. I think it was like 14 monitors from Cali Audio, but because the actual monitors themselves are so affordable, I think it cost them like $2,000 to do an entire like 3D setup.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's like, right, I should do that
next.
Yeah. I'll have one of them, please. How many speakers do you need, son? Yes. Oh, yes. I've been thinking about doing a demo on Cali Audio speakers recently. Last time I talked to them, they didn't have any, but apparently they're back in stock now. But having said that, I've just put the Eve Audio SC207s in the studio. So it's like, an embarrassment of riches. What do I review first? How do I review them all? Yeah, there's lots of good reviews coming soon. Not had much in the mail from companies recently. I think that's because Black Friday is coming in a few weeks. So all the companies are now battening down the hatches and going, don't release a new product. It'll be on Black Friday sale before it's even out. So yeah, I think we'll start seeing more releases from companies probably January now, when NAMM would have been. Oh, Van Dien says it was Dave Way's studio. Thank you very much. Yes, yeah, it was. So there you go. Yeah, it's a real thing. I didn't make it up, honest. But yeah, there you go. Lots has happened this week, and lots more will happen next week, guaranteed. We're almost on the doorstep of Black Friday, so I think we're going to start mentioning Black Friday sales as of next week, because quite a few companies are already getting their early deals out. So what we'll probably end up doing there is drop a couple of mentions out next week, then really go for it the week after, and then the week after that is Thanksgiving, so I might get some turkey, and that's the day before Black Friday, so we'll see what's come up then, because that'll be really interesting. But yes, there we go. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Sorry if I didn't get to anybody's chats in there. We've had quite a talkative crowd this evening. But yeah. Oh, Marty says it was $7,000 including the subs for Produce Like a Pro. So it was a little more than I thought, but no, from what he was saying, the subs were a large bulk of the cost. But yes, it was still not as much as you would think for an Atmos setup. So yes, there you go. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe, blah, 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 and things and stuff. This is going to be on iTunes and Spotify later on. And so the video on the DVR mix will be out tomorrow. I've got a video coming out on Saturday, which is unusual, with Britta Gertz about screaming and growling, all that kind of thing. And then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming on Monday. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you all very soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, everyone. That might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server. Link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hop Hole Studios. See you there.